My name is Serena. I'm 31, and I work as a data analyst for a healthcare insurance company in Dallas, Texas. I process medical claims for a living. I know what a legitimate diagnosis code looks like. I know what a treatment authorization looks like. I know the difference between a billing record that reflects actual medical care and one that has been constructed to look like it does. I know all of that. Because I spend 8 hours a day inside the system that processes it. I've flagged fraudulent claims. I have identified billing patterns that don't match clinical timelines. I've sat in review meetings and explained, clearly, precisely, why the documentation in front of us does not support the diagnosis being claimed. I did not expect to need those skills for my own mother. My savings account had $43,000 in it. On a Friday morning in September, 4 years of discipline. Every month. Automatic transfer. Same amount. Non-negotiable. The way I had structured my finances since I was 26, because I had watched my mother's relationship with money my entire childhood, and I had decided, very early, that I was going to build something different, something solid, something mine. The $43,000 was for a down payment, a condo in uptown Dallas, 2 blocks from the park, that I had been watching for 18 months. The market was moving. My mortgage pre-approval was in place. I had a meeting with my realtor on October 3rd, on Saturday. My mother called. Her voice, when she called, had a quality I had not heard before. Thin. Frightened. Careful in the way that careful becomes when someone is performing something they have rehearsed. She said, "Serena, baby, I need to tell you something." She said, "The doctor found something." She said, "It's cancer. I want to stop here. Before I tell you anything else, and tell you what I felt in that moment. Because the honest answer matters. And I think you need to know it. Before you understand everything that came after. I felt terror. Not the managed kind. Not the professional kind that I bring to claims review. The specific animal terror that arrives when someone says the word cancer. And the someone is your mother. My hands went cold. My chest went tight. I sat down on my kitchen floor, still holding the phone, and I listened to everything she said, and I believed every word of it. She said it was breast cancer. Stage 2. Her oncologist, a Dr. Raymond Holt at Baylor Scott and White, had confirmed it that Friday. She was looking at chemotherapy, possibly surgery, and the out-of-pocket costs were going to be significant because her insurance had gaps and the deductible was high, and she was terrified of going through this alone. She said she was sorry to call me like this. She said she didn't know who else to call. She said, "I'm scared, Serena." I said, "Mom, I'm here. I'm going to help you. Whatever you need." I transferred $22,000 to her account that Sunday. Then I spent the rest of the weekend researching breast cancer treatment protocols, oncologist ratings at Baylor Scott and White, support resources for cancer patients in the Dallas area, and how to best support a parent through chemotherapy. I did not sleep much. I was too busy trying to figure out how to save my mother's life. I want to tell you about my mother. Before I tell you what she did, because she is the most complicated person in my life, and because reducing her to what she did would be the easiest thing and the least honest. My mother, Patricia, is 58. She raised me alone from the time I was 9. After my father relocated to another state and relocated his attention along with his address, she worked 2 jobs for most of my childhood. A day shift at a grocery store and an evening shift answering phones for an insurance company. With the particular exhaustion of someone running at full capacity, with no margin for anything to go wrong, she loved me, completely, and chaotically, in the way that people love when they are also managing too many other things to love with any kind of stillness. She was not good with money, not in the irresponsible sense, not in the sense of someone who spent frivolously or lived beyond her means deliberately, in the sense of someone who had never had enough to develop a relationship with it, who had always been in reaction to the next shortfall, who had learned that money was something that ran out, and that when it ran out, you found a way. And the way was usually someone else. That someone, over the years, had usually been me. Not dramatically, Not in the large ways this story eventually arrived at. In the small ways that accumulate into a pattern over time. Rent 1 month. Car repair the next. A medical bill the month after. Always with the intention to repay. Rarely with the repayment I had given her. Over 5 years. Approximately $9,400. Not loans in any documented sense. Love money. The kind that moves between a daughter and a mother when the daughter has built something, and the mother has not. And the daughter understands, on some level, that the building was only possible because of the sacrifice the mother made, and that the debt runs in both directions even if only one direction has a number attached to it. I did not resent the $9,400. I want to be clear about that. What I resented, when I finally understood what had happened, was something else entirely. The first sign arrived, 3 weeks after the transfer. I had called my mother every few days since the diagnosis, checking in, asking about appointments, offering to drive to Fort Worth, where she lived, and take her to her first chemotherapy session. She kept saying, "Not yet." She kept saying, "The scheduling is still being sorted." She kept saying, "I'll let you know when the first appointment is confirmed." 3 weeks. No confirmed appointment. I am a data analyst. I work inside a healthcare insurance system. I know how oncology scheduling works. I know that a stage 2 breast cancer diagnosis, confirmed by a pathology report, moves to treatment planning within days, not weeks. 3 weeks with no confirmed chemotherapy appointment for a stage 2 diagnosis did not fit the clinical timeline. I noticed it, the way I notice claim patterns at work. Not with alarm, not yet, but with the specific attention of someone whose professional life has trained them to register when a sequence of events does not match the expected pattern. I said, "Mom, has Dr. Holt's office called with the treatment schedule yet?" She said, "They're still working on it." I said, "Which location is the oncology center at?" "Baylor Scott and White has several campuses." "I want to know which one so I can look at the route," she said. "The main one. In Dallas." I said, "Mom, you're in Fort Worth. The main Dallas campus is 40 minutes. Are they not referring you to the Fort Worth location?" A pause. She said, "They said Dallas is better for my case." I said, "Okay. What's Dr. Holt's direct line?" "I want to call and ask about support resources for family members of patients." Another pause. Longer this time. She said, "I don't have it in front of me right now. I'll send it later." She did not send it. I want to tell you about the next 48 hours, because they were the hours that cost me the most. Not financially, but in the specific way that costs more than money. I went to the Baylor Scott and White physician directory on Sunday evening. I searched for Dr. Raymond Holt. Oncology. He was not in the directory. I searched the entire oncology department. No Raymond Holt. I searched the full physician database. No Raymond Holt at any Baylor Scott and White campus, in any specialty. I sat with my laptop, on my kitchen floor, the same floor I had sat on when she called, and I looked at the search results for a long time. No, Dr. Raymond Holt. I searched the Texas Medical Board physician license database. No Raymond Holt licensed in the state of Texas. I searched the National Cancer Institute's physician locator. No Raymond Holt anywhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. I closed my laptop. I opened it again. I searched. Baylor Scott and White breast cancer treatment. Stage 2. Standard protocol. Timeline from diagnosis to first treatment. The standard timeline, from confirmed diagnosis to first chemotherapy, was 7 to 14 days. It had been 23 days, with no appointment, from a doctor who did not exist. I sat on my kitchen floor with my laptop, and I felt the shape of something assembling itself in my chest that I did not yet have language for, but that my body understood. With the same cold clarity it had understood the terror 3 weeks earlier when she said the word cancer. That had been terror. This was something different. This was the specific. Devastating. Silent arrival of understanding. When two things you believed could not both be true, reveal that one of them was never true at all. I did not call her that night. I went to work Monday morning. I sat at my desk.
I opened the claims database, and I did what I knew how to do. I searched for any claims filed under my mother's insurance ID in the previous 60 days. There were no oncology claims, no pathology claims, no imaging claims, no claims of any kind. That would be consistent with a cancer diagnosis, a biopsy, a staging evaluation, or any preliminary treatment planning. There was one claim, a hotel stay, processed days after I sent the $22,000, at a resort in Plano. If you've ever had the moment where the evidence assembled itself faster than you were ready for it, leave a comment. Tell me what that felt like in your body before your brain had finished processing it. And if you haven't subscribed to the Family Ledger yet, do it now. Because what I did in the next 24 hours, I planned with the same precision I brought to every claims review I had ever conducted, and I did not make a single move until the documentation was complete. The resort was called the Westin Stone Breer in Plano, Texas, 40 minutes from my apartment. I know it because the claim in the database, processed under my mother's credit card, which was linked to the insurance account for automatic premium payments, showed a 3-night stay. Checked in 2 days after my transfer cleared. 3 nights at the Westin Stone Breer. Standard room rate, $289 per night. I looked at that number for a moment. $289 per night. At a resort. 2 days after I sent $22,000 for chemotherapy she was not receiving, from a doctor who did not exist. I did not call her. I opened a new document on my laptop, and I built the file the way I built every claims review file at work. Chronological. Documented. Complete. The original phone call. Date and time. Saturday, September. 10:23 a.m. The transfer. Sunday. $22,000. Bank record attached. The physician search. Baylor Scott and White directory. No Raymond Holt. Screenshots attached. The Texas Medical Board search. No Raymond Holt. Screenshots attached. The insurance claims database. No oncology claims. No pathology. No imaging. Claims report attached. The hotel claim. The Westin Stone Breer. Plano, Texas. 3 nights. Checked in 48 hours post-transfer. Claim document attached. I called my attorney. Woman named Diana, who handles civil fraud matters, and who I had used once before for a contract dispute, and who picked up because I had texted her first and told her it was important. I told her everything in 10 minutes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Serena, do you have all of this documented?" I said, "Yes. I'm sending it now." She said, "Send it. I'll call you back in an hour." She called back in 40 minutes. She said, "What you have is strong." The physician verification failure alone, combined with the absence of any insurance claims consistent with the diagnosis, and the hotel charge post-transfer, creates a clear pattern of fraudulent misrepresentation to obtain funds. She said, "This is wire fraud. The transfer was made electronically based on a false representation of a medical emergency." She said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want the money back. And I want this on record." She said, "I can file the civil claim. For the criminal side, you'll need to file a police report." I said, "I know." I said, "Diana. She's at that resort right now. The claim shows she checked out tomorrow." Diana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Serena, are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Take someone with you." I texted my best friend and coworker, Jade, from my parking garage. I said, "I need you. Right now. I'll explain everything in the car." She responded in under a minute. Already walking out. "I want to tell you about Jade, because she matters more than the drive suggests. Jade has been my closest friend for 4 years. She sits 2 desks from me at work. She has heard about my mother. Incrementally, over those 4 years, in the way close friends hear about complicated parents. Slowly. Completely. With the full context that makes the later events make sense. In the car, I told her everything. The call. The transfer. the physician search, the claims database, the hotel charge. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said three things. She said, I'm glad you documented everything before you moved. She said, I'm driving. She said, do you need to talk about how you're feeling, or do you need to focus? I said, I need to focus right now. I'll fall apart later. She said, okay, I'll be here for both. We drove to Plano in 41 minutes. The Weston Stone Breer is a beautiful property. I want to say that, because it matters to the specific quality of what I felt walking into it. The lobby is warm and open, with the particular atmosphere of a place designed to make you feel, from the moment you enter, that you have arrived somewhere you deserve to be. I'd sent $22,000 for chemotherapy. My mother had used it to stay somewhere she deserved to be. I stood in the lobby, with Jade beside me, and I looked around. The restaurant was visible from the lobby. My mother was at a table near the window. She was not alone. She was with a man I did not recognize, who was laughing at something she had said, and she was laughing back, with the ease of someone who has been somewhere comfortable for several days, and is not thinking about anything that would interrupt the ease. She was wearing a blouse I had not seen before. Her hair, which she had told me she was worried about losing to chemotherapy, was full and styled and catching the afternoon light from the restaurant window. I stood in the lobby for a moment. Then I walked to the restaurant. She saw me. When I was 4 tables away, the ease left her face. In the same way I had watched claim patterns collapse in review meetings, when the documentation did not support the story, and the person presenting the story understood, suddenly, that the reviewer had seen it. The collapse was fast and complete. She said, Serena. She said my name the way she had said it my whole life, with the particular weight of a mother who knows her child has arrived somewhere unexpected. Except this time, the unexpected place was the truth. I sat down at the table. The man looked between us. I said, I'm her daughter. I said it to him, clearly, without drama. I said, I need to speak with her privately. He looked at my mother. She nodded, almost imperceptible. He excused himself. I set my phone on the table, face up, with the documentation file open. I said, Mom, I need you to look at this. She looked at the phone. She looked at the physician search results. She looked at the claims database report. She looked at the hotel charge. Then she looked at me, and she did not say, It's not what it looks like. She did not say, I can explain. She said, Serena, I'm so sorry. Just that. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said, I need you to tell me where the money is. She said, most of it is still in the account. She said she had spent approximately $4,200. The hotel, some shopping, a dinner. I said, I need you to transfer what remains back to me, right now, from your phone. She opened her banking app. Her hands, I noticed, were not steady. She made the transfer. My phone vibrated. I said, I'm filing a police report today. Diana is filing the civil claim for the remainder. She said, Serena, please. I said, Mom, you told me you had cancer. You said the word, and I believed you. And I sent you $22,000, and you used it to stay at a resort in Plano. She started to cry. I said, I know you're crying. I understand why you're crying. And I need you to understand that I'm going to do what I have to do regardless of the crying. She said, I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. I needed money, and I knew you would help if. I said, if what? If you were dying. She stopped. I said, Mom, I would have helped you. I have always helped you. $9,400 over 5 years. I never asked for a single dollar back. If you had called me and told me the truth about what you needed, I would have found a way to help within what I had. She looked at the table. I said, instead, you told me you had cancer. She said nothing. I said, I love you. That is, somehow, still true. I also said, I need you to be available when Diana's office contacts you, and when the detective contacts you. she said. Are you really going to do this? I said, yes. I stood up. Jade was waiting in the lobby. We walked out through the warm open space of a lobby designed to make you feel like you deserve to be there, and got in the car, and drove back to Dallas. And I looked at the highway going past the window, and I did not say anything for a long time. Then I said, I need to fall apart now. Jade said, I know. I've got you. And she did. The police report was filed that evening. The detective assigned, a woman named Torres, reviewed the documentation with the efficiency of someone who had handled fraud cases before and recognized the shape of this one immediately. She said, the physician fabrication is the key element. The false representation of a specific named doctor at a specific institution, combined with the electronic transfer, establishes the wire fraud clearly. She said, the insurance claims database evidence is unusually strong. Most victims don't have access to that kind of documentation. I said, I work inside the system. She said, it shows. She contacted my mother within the week. My mother, to her credit, did not deny it. She gave a full statement. She said she had been in debt, a payday loan that had compounded, a credit card she had stopped being able to manage, a shortfall she could not see a way out of, that had grown, over 6 months, into something she could not face directly. She said she had thought about asking me directly. She said she had been afraid I would say no. She said the cancer story had arrived, in her mind, as the version of the truth that she knew I could not refuse. I want to sit with that sentence for a moment, because I think it is the most important one in this story. The cancer story had arrived, as the version of the truth, that she knew I could not refuse. She had not chosen cancer randomly. She had chosen it, because she knew me, because she understood, from 31 years of being my mother, exactly what would break through every careful financial boundary I had built, and make me transfer $22,000 without documentation, without verification, without the professional instincts I brought to every other claim I reviewed. She had weaponized my love, not with malice. I believed that. She was desperate and frightened and out of options, and her mind had found the key that would open the door. But the key she found was the word cancer, and I had not known, until it was too late, that love was the lock. Diana filed the civil claim for the remaining $4,200, which my mother did not have in cash, and which became a structured repayment agreement over 12 months. The criminal process moved at the pace of criminal processes. My mother's attorney, whom she retained, negotiated with the DA's office. She had no prior record. She had cooperated fully. She had made partial restitution at the scene. She had given a complete statement without prompting. The outcome, 4 months later, was a deferred adjudication. No conviction on her record. Contingent on full restitution. 12 months of supervised probation, mandatory financial counseling, and community service. Not what I would have designed. But the process is not mine to design. Diana said it was a reasonable outcome for a first offense with full cooperation. I said, I know. She said, are you okay with it? I said, I'm working on it. My mother called me. On the first Sunday after the deferred adjudication was finalized. She called at the time she had always called, 10 in the morning, when the day was still fresh and the conversation had the most room. I picked up. I picked up. She said, Serena. I said, Mom. She said, I don't know how to start. I said, start anywhere. She said, I've been in financial counseling for 8 weeks. The counselor. Her name is Beverly. She has helped me see, for the first time, what my relationship with money actually looks like. What I do when I am scared. What I tell myself when the fear gets large enough. She said, I told myself, with the cancer story, that I was borrowing from you, that I was going to pay it back, that the lie was temporary, and the repayment would make it right. She said, Beverly helped me understand that I had been telling myself that story about every dollar I had ever taken from you, without calling it taking. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm sorry, Serena. Not for the outcome, for what I did to you, for making you feel for 3 weeks. That your mother was dying. I held the phone. I thought about the kitchen floor, the cold hands, the terror. The 3 weeks of researching chemotherapy protocols and oncologist ratings and support resources for a disease she did not have. I said, "That was the part that cost the most," she said. "I know," I said. "I know you know." We were quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Will you keep talking to me?" On Sundays, I thought about it. Not about whether I loved her. That answer had not changed. About whether the Sunday calls, the ones that had always felt like the most reliable thing in a complicated relationship, could exist again. On the other side of this, I said, "Yes, but I need them to be real. I need to know, when you call, that what you tell me is true. I can handle hard truths. I cannot handle constructed ones," she said. "I understand," I said. "Okay, then yes. Sundays," she said. "Thank you." We talked for a while after that, not about the case, not about Beverly or the probation or the repayment schedule, about other things, real things, the way Sunday calls are supposed to go, the $43,000. I want to tell you where it ended up, because I said I would tell the full story. And the full story includes what happened to the thing I had been building toward, the $22,000 transfer, minus the $4,200 she had spent, was returned in two pieces. The immediate transfer at the resort, $17,800. The structured repayment, $4,200 over 12 months, $350 per month, documented in the civil agreement. My savings account, by March, was back to $41,300, not $43,000, not complete. The $1,700 gap between what I had and what I had before represents the costs absorbed in the process, attorney fees, time, the particular cost of 3 weeks of believing my mother was dying, which does not have a dollar amount, but which I am including in my accounting, because it was real, and it cost something, even if the something is not expressible in a number. The realtor meeting, originally October 3rd, was rescheduled to March 15th. I closed on the Uptown Dallas condo in May, 2 blocks from the park, the one I had been watching for 18 months. I signed the documents on a Thursday afternoon, with Diana beside me, because she had asked to be there, and because I had wanted someone in the room who understood the full distance between the September Saturday phone call and this Thursday afternoon. She shook my hand after I signed. She said, "You handled every part of this right." I said. "I almost didn't verify," she said. "But you did," I said. "Yes, eventually," she said. "That's the job. Not perfection. Catching it before it becomes permanent." I looked at my name on the closing documents. Catching it before it becomes permanent. I had spent 4 years in a healthcare insurance system learning to find the gap between what someone claims and what the documentation supports. I had almost missed it in my own life, because the claim came from my mother, and the documentation she offered was the word cancer, and the word cancer, from someone you love, bypasses every professional instinct you have ever built. Almost, but not completely, and not permanently. Here's what I know, after all of it, when someone you love says the word that breaks you open, the word that bypasses every careful system you have built. Take one breath, before the transfer. One search, before the wire. One phone call to the physician's office, before the $22,000 moves. Not because you don't trust them, because you respect yourself enough to verify, before you respond. A legitimate medical emergency will still be a legitimate medical emergency. After one phone call to confirm the doctor's name, a legitimate crisis will still be a legitimate crisis. After you check the hospital directory, if the story is true, verification costs you 2 minutes. If the story is not true, verification saves you everything. My mother chose the word cancer because she knew it would work. She was right. It worked for 3 weeks. And then I opened the physician directory and the claims database, and I drove to Plano. Verify. Not because the people you love are liars, but because love is not a substitute for documentation, and documentation is not a substitute for love. Both need to exist at the same time, or one of them will cost you everything. That's my story. A physician search, a claims database, and a drive to Plano that got most of it back before checkout. If this found you at the right moment, share it with someone who needs to hear that verifying is not a betrayal of love. It is an act of self-respect. Drop a comment. Tell me if someone has ever used the thing you love most about yourself against you. I read every one. Subscribe to the Family Ledger. I'll see you in the next story.